Hello, so this is my study tips video on how I study, how I retain information, what works best for me. Now again, this is for me. I'm a big advocate on note-taking, and it is as simple as a book you get from the dollar store. Okay, nothing fancy. Have some of my homemade flashcards. I'll try to remember to show them to you before this video ends, but this is my tips on understanding this information. So right now I'm on the lab where the instructions are, and it says the lab provides you with basic overview of launching, resizing, managing, and monitoring an EC2 instance. So we have see the terminology EC2 instance. It's like, what the hell's that? So it kind of goes into here. So what I would do is EC2 instance. Okay, I just make, and I know this is probably going to be the most boring video in the world, but some need it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe nobody does. So let me know if nobody needs this video. So all I do, I have very horrible handwriting too. EC2 instance. So what is it? So, and I just put like little bullet points. That's how it works best for me, is like little bullet points. So EC2 Instance stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. Okay. And what it is a web service that provides resizable compute capacity in the cloud. So I'm just writing a web service. It provides compute capacity and it's in the cloud. Okay. So what I did here, okay, so EC2 instance. And you'll notice like that one sentence, like right here, it's like, it was just like one sentence, right? It was still part of one sentence. But I went ahead and made it like 3 different bullet points. Because for me, and again, this is for me, what works best for me is when I can just focus on one thing and not like a bigger, longer sentence. So like, I need to know that EC2 is a web service. EC2 provides compute capacity. EC2 is in the cloud. And then what it stands for, Elastic Cloud, Compute Cloud. But so this is my process. I want to pause this every so often because you don't need to, you see me write and stuff. That's kind of boring. So let's go ahead and finish it. It is designed to make web scale cloud computing easier for developers. It makes web scale computing easier for developers. So it's EC2 Simple Web Service Interface allows you to obtain and configure capacity with the minimal friction. So some of like the reason I like these bullet points is, it kind of just focuses on like the meat of a sentence or a description. Like, things like minimal friction. I don't know, to me, that's just like extra fluff. You kind of assume like, yeah, everything that we're doing and creating is to, decrease friction and to make the user experience better. So for me, on most things, that's just kind of a given. But again, this is different for everybody. But anyways, let's go back here. Simple web service interface. So it has a simple web service interface. So we can put has simple web service interface. And it allows, the interface, I'll show you what I'm doing next. Let's say the interface allows you to obtain and configure capacity. Okay. So there we go. Where am I? Okay. So there we go. It says makes the web okay, makes web scaling computing. What did it say? It's designed to make web scale cloud computing. Okay, let's change that a little bit. It's probably a given, but it just makes better sense. Okay. So EC2 makes web scale cloud computing easier for developers. And it talks about how it has a simpler web service interface. And then what I did, I kind of did a sub little arrow thingy. I'm talking about the interface because I'm still talking about the interface. And it says the interface allows to obtain a configure capacity. Okay. I'm going to pause this for a second. Okay, it talks about how the interface, we're still talking about the interface, provides you complete control of your computing resources and lets you run on Amazon's proven computing environment. To me, that's fluff. To me, I'm like, nah, I don't need to write that. EC2 reduces the time required to obtain and boot new server instances to minutes. So that's something worth writing about. So reduces time to obtain and boot new server instances 2 minutes. Okay. Which allows for the quick scale capacity, both up and down of your computing requirements changes. So allows quick scale capacity. Scale up or down as computing needs change. So this is how I did this. Okay. So I do shorthand. You'll figure that out. So reduces the time to obtain and boot new server instances to minutes, which this allows quick scale capacity, and you can scale up or down as computing needs change. So EC2 changes the economics of computing by allowing you to pay for only for capacity that you actually use. Now, this is the stuff that's a big thing on those AWS exams. So this is to make sure you have a good understanding. You're only paying for what you're using. One of the advantages of using the cloud computing, whether it's AWS, GCP, Azure, however you say it, or whatever else, is the scalability factor. Okay, Lyft is a good example. I keep using that because it's just been one that's stuck in my head. Lyft rideshare. Like whenever they talk about how they use scalability, the scalability features within AWS, because they do a comparison of on Sunday morning, probably not that many people needing their rideshare service, so their capacity or their needs for service for computing power is down, so it scales down. But Friday nights, Saturday nights, Mardi Gras, things of that nature, where their computing power, their services are going to be more highly utilized. It can scale up without them having to manually control it. It automatically has that scalability. And the advantage of that is you only pay for what you're using. So if it scales up or down, like on Sunday mornings, it doesn't need a whole lot, you're not paying for anything. Whenever it's scaling up, it's providing the services and the resources to the customer. So it creates a better customer experience for them. And, Lyft is making charged for it, but they're also making revenue. Their services are being utilized. So anyways, so EC2 changes the economics of computing. I'm just going, to me, that's fluff. Allows you to pay only for capacity. That you use. EC2 provides developers the tools to build failure-resilient applications and isolate themselves from common failure scenarios. So that's something worth writing too. Provides tools to build failure, resilient apps, and isolate from common failure scenarios. Okay. So it talks about the topics covered in this lab. I'm not going to get into that. So let's see, accessing the AWS Management Console. Nothing for us really to write about that. EC2 Instance. So in this task, you will launch an EC2 instance called with Termination Protection. So, okay. All this page I wrote about EC2. And again, I did it bullet form with a little indentations for something that was kind of a carry-on. And this is how it works for my mind. It's not going to work for everybody. And, you know, one of the things I would like to do in the class is if somebody has a style that works really well for them, to share that. So let's talk about termination protection. Okay, so termination protection. Okay, prevents you from accidentally terminating the EC2 instance. So you can deploy your instance with a, talks about you will deploy. Okay. Not gonna worry about that because that's instructions. So we're gonna learn a little bit about AMI. So for the termination policy or protection, I just wrote what it is, okay? So now we're gonna do AMI. Okay, AMI is Amazon Machine Image, and it provides info required to launch an instance. Okay, so AMI, Amazon Machine Image. Okay, so did AMI, what it is, Amazon Machine Image, and what it does is it provides information required to launch an instance. So, and then you'll notice like in this sentence right here, it kind of explains what an instance is. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to make another little heading for instance. And it's saying it's a virtual server in the cloud. Okay. And so this is note taking. This is what I would call probably a rough draft of note taking. What I do whenever to just make things more cohesive and to go over it, I will create I've been like on a cartoon kick. I'm using Canva, or create an infographic, or I'll go ahead and get my cards. Be right back. Or for the exam, for this particular thing that we're doing right now, what I did was I made my own little flashcards from, again, very cheap source, this right here. Okay, I made my own little flashcards. So I would do it just like a regular Q&A, ask a question, get the answer, in Jeopardy style is what I called it. What's the answer and what's the service or whatever it is. So one example is, what support service do all accounts receive as standard? And the answer is billing. Okay. It says using serverless architecture is a principle for performance efficiency. Okay. So this is what I would recommend to anybody who's wanting to adopt my personal style of studying and preparation. Okay. Get some of these. And then, you know, take your notes from this right here. And then you transpose them to here, focusing on one particular element at a time. So, for example, going back to EC2 Instance, I would ask a question, what does EC2 stand for? And it'll ask compute cloud. I should know that off the top of my head, I don't. So I would put on, what does EC2 stand for? And on the back of that, Elastic Compute Cloud. I would put, let's see, EC2 is a type of blank service. It's web service. The web would be on the back. EC2 provides blank compute capacity on the back. EC2 is on the back cloud. So those are the things that you can do on this. Okay. The Jeopardy style is a little bit harder. I can't think of that off the top of my head. I have to put more thought into it, but that helps reinforce the whole learning process and the understanding of it. Okay, back to here. And let's see. So we're going back to AMI. So let's see. I'm just going to make another heading for AMI. So at AMI, and then I did something about instance, and then I'm going back to AMI. That's okay. If you're OCD, this is not the place to be OCD on that. Because you put so much focus on like these little frustrations, don't do that. Okay, there's too much stuff to try to learn and to acquire the knowledge of, to focus on the little nuances that it only matters because you're to like nobody except you, because you're the only one using it, and you need to make it work for your head. Don't focus on the OCD tendencies. Sometimes I have those too, and just accept that the fact it's not going to be perfect. So AMI. So AMI includes a template for the root value, for the instance. So we can do examples of an OS, app server with apps. Okay. 2, and I try to number things whenever there's obviously a set of numbers like this. They have 3 bullets. I have one putting 3 numbers, and I'll show you here when I get done. Launch, permissions, control AWS accounts. Let's see, launch permissions that control which AWS accounts. Something about that flow is off for me. AMI launches permissions that controls which AWS accounts can use the AMI. Okay. Because if you have several people working on a particular project, and you don't want all of them having the same kind of access, this is where, like IAM, I'm surprised they didn't talk about IAM, but that might not be relevant for this particular lab. But anyways, yeah. So you don't want everybody having the same kind of permission, right? The role of least privilege is kind of prevalent there. So an AMI also includes a block device mapping. That specifies volumes to attach to instance when launch. And again, I think I said this earlier, but part of this process is iterative. Like this last line right here, block device mapping that specifies the volumes to attach to the instance when it's launched. Kind of know what they're talking about. Not really. But, just if I focus on that and get frustrated with it, I won't be able to continue and learn what I can. And I just have to have confidence in the fact that that last line right there, I'll have a better understanding of it the more I grow with it and the more I develop and play with AWS. So it talks about quick start. It contains most commonly used AMI. So didn't really want to, but I'll go ahead and try it again and see. Start lab. And pause this while it's starting. Okay, it's ready. So, okay. And then go to AWS. Let's try login out. Probably where I had it open before. Let's try this again. Okay. So if you run into that issue, just whatever you saw me do that. So I'm going to go to recently visited services, which has EC2 because I was just on it. And the reason I'm going through this is I want you to see, I want us to make a note of where the AMI can be found or what the quick start does. So try to pay most attention to the things that are bold. I'm assuming if it's bold, it might be worth knowing about. That's not always the case, but sometimes that's a good tidbit on how to do this. So let's see. So what we did before was launch instance. Did I mess this up? No, I did. Okay, good. So quick start. So how would, this is probably more time than I really probably should have put into something. I'm just going to write real quickly, which is basically AMI can be found in quick starts. But it's good to know. It's a good thing to practice. It's better to kind of most times, not all the time, to waste time on taking a deeper dive in it, as long as you don't get too far down that rabbit hole, and then having a better understanding of it. Let's see. So AMIs can be accessed via quick start after launch instance. So what I did here is here's my AMI, and what I did was AMIs can be accessed through quick start after the launch instance. Let's see. So you can, it also says you can create your own AMI or select an AMI from the marketplace. Let's see. We'll make that little sub thing. Can also create AMI. Can also buy from AWS Marketplace. So AWS Marketplace, it kind of goes on and tells us what the marketplace is. It's an online store where you can buy or sell or buy software that runs on AWS. Buy, sell software that runs on AWS. Okay. So let's see. EC2 choose instance type. EC2 provides a wide selection of instance types optimized to fit different use cases. So these little eyes information or whatever they indicate, I think that would be something also a nice thing to write and just to take notes on. So let's see how I want to do this. So EC2 provides a wide selection of instance types optimized to fit different use cases. So let's make the headline EC2 instance types. Okay. Let's see. Actually, I'm going to take that back. I'm just going to make that EC2. Because EC2 provides a wide selection of instance types. Provides selection of instance types. And they're optimized to fit different use cases. Okay, so what I have right here, this is the Marketplace one. I just said it's an online store. You can buy and sell software. EC2 provides selection of instance types that, and I just kind of did a little sub thingy, that can be optimized to fit different use cases. Let's see. Instance types comprise varying combinations of CPU. So now I'm going to make something for instance types. And when I say something, I just mean like a heading to kind of segment it. Instance types comprise varying combinations of CPU. So I'm just put comprising combos. The varying, to me, it's like fluff. I don't know. Again, that's me. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can have combination on varying different kinds of CPU, memory, storage, networking capacity, and maybe not 5. Let's see. Okay, so maybe just 4. So it's based off these: CPU, memory, storage, networking. And then all of that gives you the flexibility. So I'm going to number those: CPU, memory, storage, networking capacity. So instance types comprise varying combinations of CPU, memory, storage, and networking capacity. And all of that, all those combinations give you the flexibility to choose the appropriate mix of resources for your applications. So I'll show you what I'm doing here in just a second. All these varying combos give you the flexibility to choose mix of resources for app. Okay, so I'll go ahead and show you what I did here. Now this may seem like, I know this may seem like a long time to do like one sentence, okay? And it does take a little bit longer because I'm explaining it. But the whole process, even if I wasn't explaining this for this video, would still take a long time. And that's just how it works for me. Okay, so instance types. So it's comprised combo of CPU, memory, storage, and networking capacity. And you see that I did 4. I numbered them. And then did the little bad squiggly line with the arrow. Says all these variant combos give flexibility to choose a mix of resources for your app. Okay. And it says each instance type includes 1 or more instance sizes. Let's see. Each instance type includes 1 or more instance sizes. And this allows scale of resources to requirements of workload. Okay, so finish off that by saying each instance type includes 1 plus 1 or more instance sizes, allowing scale of resources to requirements of the workload. Okay. So this talks about we're doing micro. Don't care about that for this particular issue. Configure instance details. So the pages used to configure the instance to suit your requirements. The network indicate which VPC. So that's something that we could start putting on here. Network. Let's see. The network indicates which VPC you want to launch into. Okay. So instance details. Let's make that our heading. Okay. Want to put that's a page, because another thing that's a component of the of your knowledge and your certifications with AWS is how you know where to find stuff. Like what pages are you familiar with? Because there's a lot of different pages within AWS Console and all the things. So sometimes it's just a matter of you knowing where to find the particular resources or settings. So instance details is one of those. It's a page used to configure instance to suit your requirements. Includes networking and monitoring settings. Okay, it says network. I am going to do it. I'll show you how I'm going to do it here in a minute. So I didn't want it to be necessarily its own little heading because it's part of that. So network indicates which VPC. Wish to launch the instance to. Want to launch instance to. You have multiple work into. Okay, that does make a difference. You have multiple networks, such as different ones for development, testing, and production. So, okay. Can have multiple networks. Let's see. All right. So what I did here was, okay, so I had the instance details. Instance details, it has a page where we can configure our networking and monitoring settings. So this kind of ties into it. So this little arrow, it's a network. A network indicates which VPC you want to launch the instance into. You can have multiple what? Networks. Okay. And you can use different ones, like IE, for example, it's like different ones for development, testing, and production. Okay, so for networks like Lab VPC, the Lab VPC was created using CloudFormation template during the setup process of your lab. VPC includes 2 public subnets. Not going to worry about that particular line right there. I don't think that's really relevant for what our purposes is. For enable termination protections, okay. When EC2 instance is no longer required, it can be terminated, which means that the instance is stopped and resources are released. Terminated instance cannot start again. If you want to prevent the instance from being accidentally terminated, you can enable termination protection. So because it has this little I, and it is a particularly good description on what termination protection, I'm going to include that in there. Okay. So where was I? Okay. EC2, okay, termination protection. And that's still can enter the instance for details. So I'm going to kind of make that another little arrow. So termination protection. So talking about when an EC2 instance is no longer required, it can be terminated, which means that for the instance, when the instance is stopped and the resources are released, a terminated instance cannot be started again. If you want to prevent, so this is where we kind of want to get into the meat of prevent the instance from being accidentally terminated. Okay, so prevents instance from being accidentally terminated. So I'm going to have to finish this up soon because I got something else I got to get started on. But this kind of gives you the idea of how I do it. So I want to finish this one and then close it out. And hopefully this kind of maybe give you some ideas. And feel free to share what works for you, like either online, on Discord, in the class, whatever. So prevents instance from being accidentally being terminated. Has to be enabled. So it's not by default. Okay, so when this doesn't really kind of tie in specifically to termination protection, but I'm going to include about when a instance is terminated, it can't be restarted. And I'll put a little sub thing on there. Instances stop. Resources are released. Okay. So that's how I kind of finish this up. Termination protection prevents instance from being accidentally terminated. Okay. Has to be enabled and it's not turned on by default. And when the instance is terminated, it cannot be restarted. And it says that instance is stopped and that the resources are released. So, yeah. So I got to get started on some other stuff here for my day. But hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of my method and recommendations on studying. And it's a longer process, not going to lie. But that's, it helps you towards the goal for me anyways, and maybe it will for you too. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.